Hello there, you awakened wonders. Thanks for joining me on Stay Free with Russell Brand. Welcome to our new viewers. What a fantastic week it was last week with Tucker. I'm going to be reflecting on that conversation, its significance, what it tells us about independent media and mainstream media. Although, of course, you know that independent media now has to align with independent politics because mainstream media and centralist politics are aligned. But that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the chat. If you're watching us now on Rumble, why don't you press the red button and join us on Locals like so many already have, like Chef411 telling me simply that they're drinking coffee right now. Tucker touched on architecture and I fully agreed, says Rational Anarchy. It was a caroming and wonderful conversation. It's being covered everywhere, but it happened here on Stay Free and we've got many more conversations like it to come. Ron DeSantis coming up later this week and we're reaching out to political figures, pundits and thinkers from across the political spectrum. Let us know who you want to see come on here because based on what happened here last week, we can get these guests if you want them enough. Here to help me cover stories like Biden's cluster bombs is Gareth Roy, my on-screen assistant. Hello, Gareth.
Are you well?
I am. I can even feel Tucker's charisma rising up from that seat into your body.
That's why I've worn a jacket today. It's
you
are a bit more like Tucker.
A little more, and I can see your feet are nude, a la Tucker as well. That's how he likes to do stuff. One of the stories that we're going to be covering in some detail is the cluster bomb story. The Biden administration has agreed to provide Ukraine with cluster bombs, even though last year they said that if Russia used cluster bombs, that would be a crime. When is a cluster bomb not a cluster bomb? You know, when they need it not to be. It makes you wonder, what are the ethics and ideals behind this conflict? Of course, later in Here's the News, we'll be showing you some stuff about Tucker that we couldn't show you before or didn't show you before. And when we're exclusively on Rumble, if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Twitter, wherever you're receiving this, the majority of the show can only happen on Rumble, not because of hate speech, but because of free speech. We've got no time for hatred. We don't have time as individuals. We don't have time as a movement. We don't have time as a species. This is a time for alliance. We're going to be talking about how your government wants to continue to censor you in spite of a federal judgment that says they should simply stop. You will not believe the propaganda that we're going to show you. We're going to show you a clip from CNN that if it was happening in a country that you already were predisposed to dislike, like, for example, Russia or perhaps a nation in the United Arab Emirates, you'd go, oh, look at this propaganda, look at this propaganda. But it's actually happening in America. And what astonishes me is I don't think anyone's actually telling them to do it. I think they're voluntarily just censoring themselves or propagandizing themselves. Let me know in the chat and the comments. Press the red button if you want to join us on Locals. But as an Englishman, I am proud to welcome to our noble, mighty country Joe Biden, President of the United States. We're going to be showing you a poll later that, where we asked you, who are you happiest being in charge of this current conflict? Is it Joe Biden? Would you like Trump in charge? Would you like next week's guest on the show, Ron DeSantis? What was the other one? I can't remember. There's someone else. It's on a poll. I'll show you the answers in a minute. But first, let's have a look at Biden arriving in Downing Street, where he will meet the man that some people are calling a WEF stooge, Rishi Sunak. So I forgot the name of our actual Prime Minister.
Just like Joe Biden did.
Joe Biden forgot, I forgot. He's a pretty forgettable guy. His wife, though, I remember her. She's got all sorts of hookups in the WEF at plus billions.
Allegedly.
Well, they're not alleged.
They're not alleged. You can see it. You see the money. She paid her tax bill yet?
No.
No, she won't pay it. She won't pay. Let's have a look at Biden arriving in Downing Street, our seat of power.
Journalists are in place, and I think here he comes.
Speaking of the president, he has now left the car, and two of them.
He was that bothered, did they?
No.
It's like a very low-key arrival.
Not much
People are just looking
fanfare,
around.
is there?
Have a look at some of the faces in the background. No one cares.
And there's the handshake. And that's it.
That's it. That's the news. Here is the news. We want to talk to you, though, about a rather more significant story, cluster bombs. Is it right to cluster bomb the people of Russia and Ukraine? Because the problem with cluster bombs is, of course, that they lie around for absolute ages. The first clip that I would like to show you is the... Oh, no, that's in the censorship one, is it?
News.
Just introducing the concept of cluster bombs. Can we have a look at the poll result first and see who our viewers most would like? Oh, look, I mean, that's hardly surprising.
Surprise.
With the USA sending cluster bombs to the Ukraine, who would you trust to bring this war to a conclusion? Biden, that's just 2% of you. Trump, 71% of you. RFK, 23% of you. And DeSantis, 4%. We're going to have to tell Ron that when he comes here next week. We're going to have to say you're going to have to work harder to win over the trust of the public because it's still the big man. And I don't mean Joe Biden. I don't like when I say that. Let's have a look at how ABC brought you the news of these cluster bombs.
Tonight, the United States commits to supplying Ukraine with perhaps the most controversial weapon of this war so far.
And it was a very difficult decision on my part.
Cluster munitions.
It's a difficult decision. Does not mitigate children in the future having their legs blown off because of a shoddy choice in the past, does it? Cluster bombs. They spoke about Russia using cluster bombs last year. Have we got that clip actually? Like when America talked about the use of cluster bombs last year, it was because Russia were using them, and they said it was reprehensible and in fact a war crime is how they described it.
Jen Psaki, who was press secretary at the time, she said that the use of cluster bombs by Russia constitutes a war crime. NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg said, "We have seen the use of cluster bombs, which will be in violation of international law."
There've been, I see here that over 100 nations, in fact 120 nations, I think it is, have banned the use of cluster bombs because they're dangerous. What I suppose this makes me feel is that this conflict is continuing to escalate. More and more escalatory measures are being taken, and this, by the same rationale that you can justify using cluster bombs. Have you got the guy saying why they're using them, saying, look, we've got to use cluster bombs because in the event of a Russian advance, the situation would be worse. Do we have that clip of that dude saying that? Like when he's like, by that rationale, you could justify using anything at all.
Yeah.
You go like up to and including
what is next?
nuclear weapons. Let me know in the chat. Do you think this could seriously become a nuclear conflict? Do you trust the people that are in charge of this war right now to steer us away from the apocalypse? I think one of the things that Tucker was most ardent about was that this war is a significant issue. He called it a red line on the show. He said that Trump's record on war is primarily what attracts him to. I think he said he loves Trump, didn't he? He said he loves Trump. Well, what do you feel, you guys? Join us over on Locals. Press the red button. Let us know in the chat if you want a leader that is going to bring you away from the precipice of an escalating war. It's becoming clear that there's an agenda to annihilate Russia, to destabilize Russia. But the problem is, history tells us, demonstrates to us plainly, Russia is not for the annihilating. They are a serious, powerful nation. Napoleon found that out. Hitler found that out. Is Joe Biden about to find that out? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat if you think that checks are being written that the butt can't cash, to put it plainly.
So this comes right after the Human Rights Watch issued a report that said Ukraine has killed its own citizens using cluster munitions. So it's, you know, this is affecting Ukraine citizens, and I think that's one of the things that people have been talking about, especially when it comes to, as you say, children.
Yeah, it's like, you know, like how the word cluster is usually used as a prefix for another phrase, like it's a cluster and then F word. Like I won't use it here because like swearing is not allowed on YouTube. It's another thing I like about Rumble, as a matter of fact, is you can just freely use expletives, which sometimes seems necessary when critiquing the current administration.
Is it strange that I thought of Kellogg's Honey Nut clusters?
Yes, it is, mate, because I was talking about cluster F words. I wasn't talking about delicious breakfast cereals.
They were delicious.
But they were lovely. Bound together with honey, little bits of Rice Krispie, little bits of Frosty, a little bit of nut, all delicious. From that maniac Kellogg who thought he could build a better future without alcohol simply using cornflakes. People are always thinking that in them days. You simply can't do it. Cluster bombs or cluster F words or delicious honey nut clusters, the whole thing is coming together in a seemingly despicable way.
But to get back to the seriousness of it, obviously Biden was saying there, you know, I thought long and hard about this is not an easy decision for me. The United States has killed more people with cluster munitions than any other country. During the Vietnam War, the US dropped millions of cluster bombs in Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos, and each country is still dealing with them to this day.
Also, it seems like a pretty easy decision to make because it's a decision that they've simply made. This country, I don't think of it as your country anymore because it's a country that's been co-opted. It's a country that's being run, I would say, by deep state and corporate interests rather than a republic or a democracy, whatever term you prefer. I know you guys are very particular about that stuff. In any event, it seems that it's something that's become completely cut off from the will of the people, and possibly that's because it's a propagandist state. I want to show you now how CNN have reported on that federal judgment that the government have to stop interfering in social media. I want to show you how that if this was broadcast anywhere else in the world, if these people happen to be wearing some kind of traditional dress, you would regard it as absolutely outlandish. You would identify it and recognize it for what it is: propaganda. The state are pushing back through the Department of Justice on the recent judgment that they've got to stop interfering in social media posts unless it's criminal activity or matters of national security. They're pushing back on that. Look at how CNN report on this subject and tell me how this differs from propaganda. Have a look.
Just reading the words in this injunction, a, quote, massive effort by the defendants to suppress speech based on content, those are the judge's words, calling the present case, quote, arguably involves the most massive attack against free speech in the United States history, Ellie.
Yeah. It's a dramatic decision by this judge. If you read through it, he's citing to literature and George Washington and Ben Franklin. Here's what...
Those are pretty significant names in American history, and particularly when it comes to constitutional and legislative rights for Americans. Like, why wouldn't you cite those names?
Really is astonishing to me. This is a conservative ideology that clearly comes through in this decision. It's a conservative political ideology, right? We saw some of the...
Is it a conservative political ideology, free speech? When I grew up, free speech was transcendent of party politics. Everyone believed in free speech. Free speech was not on the table as an issue we were discussing. When did free speech become a right-wing issue? When did us being on Rumble become, because Rumble, that's for like far-right hate speech? I don't have no time for hatred. I don't believe in either political party. I believe in your right to run your own life and to run your own community, and I believe in democracy, and I believe that what might be right for me might not be right for you, and what might be right for the communities that I see myself affiliated with might not be right for your communities, and we're going to have different views because we've had different experiences, and if you shut down free speech, you shut down the possibility for conversation. You can't have democracy because you can't have debate and you can't have consensus. What's more, it's pretty plain that many of the issues that were censored incorrectly and illegally, that there's evidence that your rights to free speech, your First Amendment rights, have already been breached. How can CNN report on this matter as if the judgment itself is the problem?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how you can argue against something. The injunction issued barred government agencies from talking to social media companies for the purpose of, these are things, urging, encouraging, pressuring, or inducing in any manner the removal, deletion, suppression, or reduction of content containing protected free speech. That doesn't, to me, sound like a crazy right-wing, Trump-appointed, mad decision to have made.
Can you come up with an argument for us? Are we missing something? Tell me, like, I can see the argument they're making, but it doesn't make sense. Let me know in the comments and the chat what it is they're trying to say. What is it that they believe in? Is this just pure propaganda now? Have a look.
Questioning vaccines, questioning masks, conservative talking points. But
vaccines and masks, are they conservative talking points? Obviously, we're on YouTube right now. When we're over the road in a second, click the link in the description. We'll get into that stuff in a little more detail, but that's not a political issue. It oughtn't be a political issue. Autonomy, freedom over your own anatomy, freedom over the kind of choices you make. How has these things become politicized? How are some issues becoming amplified, and how are they becoming aggregated and alloyed to particular ideologies? Simply, it seems, in order to dismiss important arguments.
Ruling itself is the opposite of judicial conservatism. This is one of the most aggressive, far-reaching rulings you'll ever see. What this judge is purporting to do is to micromanage, really, the day-to-day interactions between essentially the entire executive branch, all these agencies that are listed as defendants, and the leading social media companies. And
you can't micromanage the government when they're micromanaging you, when you're single, when they're controlling your free speech, when they're controlling and manipulating your free speech. How can they use the term micromanage when they're talking about the government micromanaging your conversation? And as a further irony, there are certain things that I cannot say right now because this censorship is real. and it's ongoing. Why is it happening? What do you think is the future for platforms that make a commitment for free speech without your support? That's why what you do and the decisions you make are integral, fundamental, vital. That's why it's important that you join us in a minute when we come off this platform.
For micromanaging anyone, it would be to micromanage what the government can do. If anything, to be honest, what we've learned the last few years, it would be, yeah, we should micromanage the government.
There's not a point where it's like, you've done so well in the last couple of years, we're going to take the shackles off. This is not a time to run free. You did such a good job of shutting down debate, of censoring authentic voices, of closing down legitimate science. You've done so well. Just have fun with it now.
Yeah.
It's not like
Express
that, is
yourself.
Spring break! Censor whatever you want to censor. Shut down whatever you want to shut. Shut down some things that are true. Shut down things that you know to be true.
Yeah, and for the, media, for the press to be saying, essentially, the government, your government, who have the ability to do all sorts of things, should be left to it, shouldn't be under any kind of microscope, should not be micromanaged in any way by the public, is incredible that you get that on a mainstream news outlet.
What type of relationship do you want with your government? Do you see it as parental or do you see it as service? I've thought that public officials are meant to be in your service, whether that's legislative, bureaucratic. It's in the service of the people that fund them. It can't be that we are an authoritative structure that controls you like a parent. That's what to believe in censorship, you have to believe that you yourself or that others are incapable of discerning truth from fiction, making decisions that you believe are valid, or you are inclined towards authoritarianism and want the ability to shut down opposition. That is not democracy. That is not freedom. That is repackaged tyranny. What that smacks of to me is that the lessons of the last century have been learned in so much as the aesthetics of totalitarianism have altered. No more jackboots, no more flags, but the ability to control is being veiled. It is being, I would say, sprinkled in saccharin, lubricated with sophistry and fine words.
Yeah, and once again, CNN, the mouthpiece of the state, is doing what a lot of its critics say it does, and it's doing exactly that here.
CNN bundling your data more than pornography would, selling it more than pornography would. So next time you're making a decision, CNN or the saucy stuff, now you know.
In the actual temporary injunction, the judge basically says you're not allowed, administration, to talk to these social media companies about any protected free speech except for cybersecurity threats, national security threats, criminal threats. But where's the line?
There, that's the line, except for national security and criminality. That's a perfectly good line. Let me know in the comments in the chat if you think that there's a problem with that line, if there's anything wrong with it. You're going to love this now. This is Kerry JeanPierre we're going to have a look at now. Well, I feel for her, as a matter of fact, because I presume that people that get into this line of work are idealists that believe in change, believe in politics. And now, like Jen Psaki before her, every single day she finds herself on the TV having to say, this is why cluster bombs are good now. This is why censorship is good now. No young idealist who believes in politics wants to be a mouthpiece for a government that's blowing up children and controlling conversation. Have a look at this, and I think the only thing that gets Jen Psaki and maybe Kerry JeanPierre through difficult times like this, I reckon, is the jobs they're going to end up having afterwards. But let's have a look at her now justifying, what is it, cluster bombs?
Cluster bombs,
this is her sort of saying why cluster bombs with the right accent are okay. Have a look.
Thank you. Some Democrats have said that giving cluster munitions to Ukraine undermines America's reputation as a human rights defender around the world. What's the White House response?
I mean, we don't believe that it undermines our reputation of being human rights defenders. This is something that
It really sounds like she says human rights offenders there. I think she's meant to be saying defenders because that was in the question, but it's one of those Freudian moments
slips.
again.
Have I accidentally said we're a human rights offender because of the cluster bombing? Yes.
We say all the time, right, when it comes to human rights, when it comes to having those conversations with either our partners or other heads of state, the president is never shies away from having those conversations. Look.
Well, difficult. That's difficult stuff. Have a look at the number of people that have held that position that have gone on to have highly paid media positions. And this is a bipartisan issue, as it often is. Under Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, former press secretary, she's now working at MSNBC. You can see under Trump, all these guys that did that job have found their way onto Fox. And under Barack Obama, those characters got high paid jobs in media as well.
And Kerry JeanPierre is a former analyst for MSNBC and NBC.
So it's like a revolving door, in a sense, like it was famously observed by Chomsky, and I know what you're going to say about him in the comments now, like it was said that by the time you're in that chair doing that job, you have been pre-selected. These interlocking systems of education, of state, of media, of finance, of corporatism are so porous that by the time you enter one, you have been pre-schooled, pre-chewed by other institutions, and your agreement and compliance has already been assured.
A great quote by Julia Rock at The Lever. She says, press secretaries aren't just speaking for the president, they're also auditioning for their future corporate employers. But the Democrats purport to be looking out for the interests of working people and are oftentimes torn between policies that are popular among the base but would upset corporate donors. And that's the situation these press secretaries find themselves in, is that they ultimately know, I'm going to be going and working for MSNBC, I'm going to have a plum job there. That they can't get to a point of doing anti-establishment messaging when they're speaking for the president, but also speaking for their future corporate employees.
Wow, that's so incredible. You have to think about the job you're doing at the moment. Okay, I have to make it sound that it's okay to cluster bomb children, but also this has got to go well with a Pfizer commercial. There's a lot of balls to keep in the air, so respect to them for that. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, we're going to have to say goodbye because we are going to be talking about January the 6th and how MSNBC have reported on it, and it gets tricky. There's some other stuff I want to talk about with Tucker as well. So if you're watching us on YouTube, click the link in the description. Join us over on Rumble where we can speak freely. And if you're watching us on Rumble right now, press the red button. Join our locals community, a diverse and beautiful community that speak openly to one another, that regulate themselves freely and beautifully.